The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Max Radio. Open line today. Text 166 177, WhatsApp 166 177, but you will have to have us in your contacts, so stick an 07624 in front of that. Email studio@manxradio.com and call 66 13 68 if you want to speak live on the air. Lots in the news today, including this story about ultra-processed food being fed to children at school. Figures published by Department of Education, Sport and Culture have shown up to 30%. Nearly a third of food served in some of the island's secondary schools is classed as ultra-processed, and that figure is 15.5% in primary schools. The data has been released after a query by the Garth MHK, Daphne Kane, who's calling for a review for the food served in schools. If you have somebody at school that you like to talk about the quality of food, or either way, to be quite honest, if you want to give it a plug, bouquets or brickbats for food in schools today. But certainly Daphne Kane getting very animated about it. Howard's first with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I tend to agree with you about the foodstuffs. I live virtually next door to a school, and they've done away with the kitchens, although they just, not long previous to that, fitted new kitchens. But the smells that used to emanate from that kitchen, it made you hungry, because the staff in there, the girls and the chef, the cooks, they were all making the food on the premises, and it was all cooked in big pots and everything, and the children used to get what we term as proper food, and they were sitting down on all the tables there scoffing that, and there'd be clean plates all round. But I don't know, probably corrected if I'm wrong, but it all emanates from one place now, like up where the hospitals, where they're transporting it round, and chilled food as opposed to or stuff that's pre-warm, preheated.
Yeah, I think some of the primary schools have what they call hubs, where it's made at a central location and shipped out. I don't quite know what they do, but certainly I think the secondary schools do have kitchens still.
Yeah, because I'd say I used to get the smell of the stews or the what we term as proper food. It used to be wafting around here, and it was lovely, and you could go down there and the girls would be working hard, and they'd be all proper vegetables, the carrots and the potatoes and everything all be going in. And the problem is today with a lot of people, unless it's in a cardboard box and goes ding, they don't know how to cook it. And but now those girls that were down there, they're still in there working, some of them, but all they are is distributing, as they rightly say now, this processed food, which it can't be doing the children any good.
And all you see is whenever anybody talks about nutrition is the one thing they say, the way to a healthy life is to eat a balanced diet, obviously get some exercise, but a balanced diet. And also children, young people, need to know where food comes from and how you prepare it.
That's right. If you ask them where the milk comes from, they say Tesco. They wouldn't dream of saying it comes from a cow. It's a standing joke, but that is becoming a reality of life now. And that's the way their mindset is. And the adverts on the television, etc., that is food to them. And at the end of the day, it's junk. But that's not what I come on for, actually. That's for plenty of other people, parents, etc., to complain about it. But I've just been listening to one of your podcasts, and it's the 150 years of the railways, and it's by Mike Buttle. It's one of three that he's doing on a Tuesday night, I think it is, but I've just listened to it this morning, and it's a story of the railway from day one, and it's coming up to more or less the present time in three programs, and they are on your podcast, so you can go and listen to them. But Mike, his family, Mike himself, his dad and his granddad were all part of the railway. You don't just work for it, you're part of it. And he's giving the story of the Isle of Man railways, as they were, in a more humanistic form. It's not just reams and reams of information. It's a story of the railway, and it's very good. It's only 25 minutes, so spend a nice quiet 25 minutes of your life just relaxing and listening to what we now are having a review on. And it's the story of the railway, and the government is still fighting and wrangling over whether they should keep it or let it go or whatever. But,
as has been always the case, do you remember when it nearly disappeared? Was it in the 1970s when the whole thing? And obviously Douglas to Peel went via St John's. That went, but now we have what we have, and just like whenever you talk about Douglas to Peel coming back, some people say that's a good idea. Some people have no idea what you're talking about. Some people don't even know there used to be a railway between Douglas and Peel.
Well, you'd have the cycling fraternity now, because a lot of that, and I've ridden on it, is used as a cycle track, and they've got way stations there where you can sit down and have a picnic and everything. So to do that would be, apart from that, that's cost prohibitive. But if you go alongside the Crosby, I think it is, the Crosby football pitch where they've just built that new estate, there's almost a ski jump there, so that would, modern machinery would take that away, but there's a tremendous amount of work, plus that's all through the wetlands there now, and hasn't been drained for years. So, but the fact that, that program that's on Manx Radio, and it's on your podcast, just click on that and scroll down, and it's an excellent program, and it's a more human story of the railways, and he's interviewing people and on the platform and various aspects of it, and it is very, very good.
Well, there's plenty more to come, I know that.
Well, there's two more to come. I think he's done 3. But they said about the local people using it. Well, when the coal, up until not so very long ago, was about £150 a tonne. And one of the things now is shouting about the cost of petrol. They're saying coal for the steam coal, etc., is £450. So let us as locals use the railway and help it keep it afloat.
Okay, all right. Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. This is the programme started on Tuesday, the first of 3, 150 years of Isle of Man Steam Railways, produced, presented by Mike Buttle. You can hear part 1 as a podcast if you just go to maxradio.com, click on podcasts. It and the other 85 odd podcasts that we produce are there. But it's really a eulogy to the Isle of Man Steam Railways, of which the Buttle family knows an awful lot. Anyway, that's one of many podcasts. Of course, this is Mannin Line comes out as a podcast. All the other programs come out as podcasts. And if you're not yet a subscriber to our podcast, then by all means, go to the website and click on subscribe. And if you have a favourite podcast provider, they'll be available via there as well. Yesterday on Mannin Line, there was much talk yesterday. Well, we got on to talking about the wallabies. What's going to happen in the future with the wallabies? And Jed Power was on yesterday. Jed was talking about the politics of the Isle of Man. And it's a question that comes up periodically about reforming politics, how you should reform politics, whether we should have party politics on the Isle of Man. And we have had party politics in the past. APG was a progressive movement. The Manx Labour Party had certainly quite a few politicians in at one time. We have independent politicians, and consequently there has to be government by consensus. Chief Minister has Comin, over which he has some control, but there are backbenchers, and Jed's point was that maybe we should have truly independent politicians in the future. Now, if you've got any thoughts on that, and obviously the size of Tynwald's come up in the past, what role LegCo should be playing, whether LegCo should indeed be elected as island-wide politicians. But if you've got any thoughts on that, got some emails in about that yesterday. Karen said, somebody who knows what he's talking about. Well spoken, Jed. Some sense about the whole thing. And Margot said, many people feel the same way about getting some reform. Increase the number of elected members by 12, scrap the unelected MLCs, then Comyn can't dominate the Tynwald debates. If you've got any thoughts on where our politics go, and something that we talk about all the time, which is great because we do need to refresh the political DNA aside of the general elections we have. We'll see. Jed was talking about the reforming the government. Spot on, says Texter 638. The current government, I think, is the least effective so far. Well, there are only 4 acts promulgated at Tynwald on Tynwald Day, just 4. There have been many more in the past. Jed's absolutely spot on, says Neil in Ramsey. And I agree with Jed, says Texter 753. I've had more than enough of them already. I'm in, says Texter 557, the fellow who wants a government reform. I know, let's get a meeting set up, says Texter 557. And also, I've also wanted the government to consider, we were talking about the wallabies yesterday and them not being a native species, but Helen said I wanted the government to provide a safe place for red squirrels, but I was told that we shouldn't import non-native animals. So if we can import and indeed let wallabies do what wallabies do, and now we have over 500 wallabies, why shouldn't we import red squirrels and make it safe for red squirrels on the Isle of Man, says Helen. Manx Utilities are building a substation up on the Sulby campsite for the new wind farm, says Texter 807. Is it a substation or is it a new block of toilets? We don't know. The wallabies are our friends, says Don. They're not native, says Don. I think we should all grow up with the wallabies not being non-native. Juan's with us now. Hi, Juan.
How are you, Andy?
I'm just considering which processed foods I should eat.
Well, I'm just following up on a couple of things. I'll talk on that one first.
Are chips processed?
Sorry?
Are chips processed food?
Are chips processed food? Well, I suppose all this new stuff, it's all processed potato that they're using, isn't it, in frozen chips?
That's what you want. Manx spuds, Manx chips made with Manx potatoes.
And this is kind of the point that I've been getting at for a long time now. And why can't the Isle of Man be a leader in this? Now, we've got politicians there now going on about this. Not going to name anything because I'll be called a misogynist again. But we've got politicians going on about this. But these politicians are very much down the green avenue of getting rid of dairy and meat and everything else out of our food chain. Meat being a high source of protein. So we're in a situation here where we've got a really good farming and fishing island. Agriculture has been a premium here. So once you lose this land, once you lose this arable land, that's the start of everything. Once that goes to wild, you're not going to get it back. We've got good grain. It's been established. We've got good grain. We've established that people in England would like our flour and our grain. So I beg the question again, and I've asked it many times, and I've asked Claire Barber, what is the will of government to go forward with this? Or are they taking the line of some of these unelected power initiatives in the world, which you mentioned yesterday quite slightly? But these people have got massive power, and these governments seem to be following these agendas. Why can't the Isle of Man just stand up and say, this is what we're doing, this is what's best for our people, this is what's best for our island, this is what's best for our children's diets, and this is what we're doing?
One thing that hasn't happened, since Ramsey Bakery went, Juan, one direct consequence of that, there was no milling wheat sowed this year. So we've got reserves, up to 2 years reserves at Laxey Mills, which may be moving. But after that, they didn't plant any milling wheat this year, which means, as you say, once you let things like that go and they find other sources of income, that may never come back.
That's it, exactly. And, of course, you've had the country care scheme for quite some time, which, am I right or wrong in that? That's basically paying farmers not to farm. Would I be right in saying that?
I think they couch it in more delicate terms. They basically say they're custodians of the landscape and they have to take care of the land, which they do.
Yeah, but, and again, I've said this before, there should be investment and money put into farming, not farmers per se, because this is what's happening. They're paying people not to farm. I mean, if someone paid me to open a shop and didn't have to sell anything, I'd do it as well. So, the rot seems to start at government. And, going on to what Jed was saying yesterday about reform, I wonder how much clout have our government actually got? There seems to be. I mean, Michelle Hayward made a statement the other day. I think I'm not going to quote it exactly, but it was along the lines of, "We are the most progressive government we have had," something like that. I'm still trying to work that one out. I'm just wondering in which way they're progressing, because more and more people as we go along the line now are just not happy with what's going on and the way that our government are taking us.
But the thing is, Jewin, whichever way they're taking us, it's not very clear, because if it's going to a net zero, if it's going to a green agenda, we have no onshore wind, we have no offshore wind. They've not talked about tidal power. They've turned their back on geothermal. They're not even considering the small nuclear, Rolls-Royce tiny nuclear power stations. At the moment, there seems to be a lot of talk and a lot of committees and a lot of plans, just not much happening.
And like I said, it's like swimming through treacle, trying to get an answer. Everyone's evasive and they won't answer simple questions. I totally agree with Jed. And we're talking about party politics. I think what we need, and I think as Jed touched on, is common sense. You need a group of like-minded people who are going to row the boat in the same direction. You imagine this lot in the Viking boat race. They wouldn't get out of the harbour. No one's rowing the boat in the same direction here. And the Labour Party are not the ones to do it. If their leader has nailed their colours to the mast for the green issue, that's going to cost every man and woman and child here a fortune in the future. That's not the party to take us forward. But we do definitely need a group of like-minded people, and I think Coman seem to have far too much power from what's being said. That there's got to be some kind of reform here before we go too far down the line and can't get back out of this mess.
Well, the truth is we're not as well off as we used to be. We're using reserves at the moment. We are reliant on financial services. That's the biggest money earner. But e-gaming is very, very big, and we see the new King Gaming dormitory that's going to be built. But e-gaming, it's located wherever the server is. So e-gaming could disappear as quickly as it comes.
And this stuff, when they moved, I think they moved in the 80s, didn't they, into the financial sort of the late 70s, and I think it was the Walker administration then, and I think the policy was, tourism has been good to us, we have to let it down slowly, was I think the policy. Tourism kind of never goes away, it goes up and down and never goes away, we've always got it, but like you say, we're very vulnerable to if someone changes tax legislation or regime somewhere, then these people will go, they'll go where it suits them best.
Do you remember at one time, a few years ago, I think it was when Terry Toohey was the chief exec of the Tourist Board, Terry Toohey was very much pro bringing cruise liners in, because he said, we don't have to give them bed nights, but they can come and drop off 2,000 tourists for a day and clear off. And do you remember there was that plan to put a cruise liner terminal in Douglas?
I do, and I mean, if you go to Gibraltar, you see that Gibraltar make their money off that. I mean, they take 3 or 4 cruise liners a day going in there sometimes.
As will Liverpool, because that's why we've been turfed off the link span by the Liver building. It's for a cruise terminal.
But beside the docking fees, what else do you get from a cruise line? I mean, I've been on a cruise, and why would you go out and eat somewhere when you're going to get it free on board? So you're going to get a group of people that's going to maybe buy a postcard and a tea towel. So beside the docking fees, I don't know what's going to come into the infrastructure.
Well, I think Mr. Toohey's plan was to get lots of buses that could, whisk them away to tourist destinations around the island, to the Manx National Heritage places and what have you, and that was the answer to it. But as at the moment, in terms of tourism, what have we got? Apart from a beautiful island and glens and bays and a couple of nice beaches, what do we offer tourists?
But I noticed that the other week talking about that, Andy, and I was at Castle Rushen, and I think there was 210, I think I was told, people booked in from the cruise line to go into Castle Rushen. So Manx National Heritage are getting the entry money for that, and I think it was Alaman buses that were actually tripping them there, so it wasn't Tours Alaman they were using. So the money's going into government per se on that. It's not going into the businesses. But yeah, there was 200 odd people went in on one day. So yeah, they are going to the heritage sites, but what's the actual spend in the community? What do we get back from that? It's a difficult one, isn't it? But I think government. I'm not saying all the government. There's some really good working people in government with some good ideas, but it just the rest of it just doesn't seem to be rowing in the same direction at the moment. It's definitely a bit disjointed. Definitely a bit disjointed.
And we got a break for summer as well while the recess is on.
Yes. It's not a bad job, is it?
All right. Thanks, Stuart.
Take care. See you, Andy.
Roy B dropped me a note in just to say, Andy, I bet the food served at the Tynwald banquet wasn't ultra-processed, or the food served to the dignitaries on the Manxman. I bet that was okay. Our 12-year-old son, says Texter 930, comes home from QE2 school hungry. Now, there was an item a wee while ago on Mannin Line. We talked about the portion sizes, or whether or not the portion sizes of food have actually dropped back. I think we should have a north, south, east and west and one local authority for each. So amalgamate the local authorities and 4 MHKs for each of the 4 local authorities. Can you tell Helen, says Texter 399, we don't have enough food for red squirrels, but we do for the wallabies. I don't know what the wallabies actually eat. When that lady phoned in Mannin Line and said they were destroying the ecosystem, maybe we'll find out what if they are destroying the ecosystem or whether that's just a Manx myth. The letter in this week's Examiner is correct. The government is the worst I can remember, says Texter 366, constantly contradicting themselves, and they think they have their priorities all wrong. I'd love to see this idea of a snap general election taking place. I don't know whether we have the facility for that to happen. Sounds like the Department of Education's meal service will benefit from some much needed expert advice from a when I was in government political genius. Well, we do have an opportunity all the time, periodically, to stand for Tynwald, to stand for the House of Keys. I'll be honest with you, I'm always very admiring of people who stand for public office. I think it takes a lot of guts to stand for public office. And every time we do a general election on Max Radio, I'm very keen to speak to the people who want to enter public service and stand for public office. So anytime, you feel like criticising MHKs, I think one question to ask yourself is, would I do the job? Barbara's on now. Hi, Barbara.
Oh, hello, Andy. How very nice to speak to you.
And you too.
The person that answered the phone persuaded me that if I came on myself, I would do very well, so here I am.
Off you go, Barbara.
It's about the red squirrels, actually. A good few years ago now, I got in touch with the Department of Fisheries and forests and things to ask, could we bring red squirrels here so they'd be safe from the pox that the grey squirrels give them. And I was told that we didn't have enough vegetation for them and they would have to be fed while all the time they were here because they wouldn't have enough. And I just thought the lady that phoned up, I thought I would tell her that, and I don't suppose it's changed since then.
So not enough food. So what do red squirrels eat?
Well, I think they'll eat leaves and they'll eat acorns and things like that, and we didn't have enough of them, of oak trees and the food that they would like to eat, beech nuts and various things. And so it wasn't feasible to have them over here, which was a shame, because if they were just red squirrels here, then they'd be safe from the grey squirrels, wouldn't they? But I thought the lady who phoned in or left a message might like to know that was the reason.
Interesting. I mean, how many would you have liked to bring over?
Well, a good few, so they could breed, and I don't know whether that would have worked, but obviously it wouldn't, because of the lack of their natural food.
And I mean, how much threat are red squirrels over across in England? There are certainly pockets of red squirrels, aren't there?
Yes, there are pockets of red squirrels, but the grey squirrels seem to be have this pox that doesn't affect them, but if the red squirrels get it, so there are little pockets of them, but if the red squirrels get it, then eventually the red squirrel, which is native to the British Isles, I think, will die out and we won't have any. It'll just be the greys.
Where did the greys come from?
They were imported because they thought it would be a good idea to have grey squirrels and didn't realise, as they don't when they do this, that it didn't work. It would do this to the red squirrels, and that was found out too late, and the grey squirrels have multiplied and divided and spread.
Okay, Barbara, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling today.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Good to hear from you. 28 minutes before 1 on Max Radio. Do all local authorities, says a confused ratepayer in Moran on Treble O, do all local authorities have to provide recreational areas for ratepayers? Do the rates we pay cover the expenses to provide such facilities, says a confused ratepayer in Moran. Why are you asking me this? Processed foods full of sugar or fructose and no fibre, says Des. Are tinned peas processed food? Because tinned peas have, I know this because I've read the label, tinned peas do have fibre in them, so I don't know whether tinned peas are processed food. What about tinned carrots? Ultra-processed foods are a big worry, says Michael. I have stage 3 cancer of the colon. Having this, I won't sit at home eating ultra-processed foods, and I don't want children getting cancer. I fight it as best as I can, eating vegetable soup for dinner, adding turmeric, ginger and lemon. Sometimes I cut up vegetable sausages or chicken added to the soup, for example. I'm on day 32 of this experiment. Soon going to have a scan and see how my colon's doing. I've found some of my homemade soups definitely help. Pork, bacon, chorizo and salami and bacon are no longer part of my diet. I never eat shellfish or oysters or anything that lives at the bottom of the oceans, as these organisms feed on dead marine life. So no queenies. People have no idea what these foods can do to your health, along with energy drinks that people seem to buy. Daphne Kane is right to be concerned that children are eating ultra-processed foods. I don't want any child on this earth to go through chemotherapy, lying awake wondering if you're going to survive a cancer. I'm not scaremongering, says Michael. It concerns me, the chemicals that they are putting into foods. So ultra-processed foods, says Michael, not a good idea as well. Regarding the school dinners, says Phil, your caller Howard was just talking about school dinners. You can serve what you like in schools, but you won't change what children will eat. They won't eat vegetables or fruit. You can't make them eat vegetables or fruit. Where it's been tried, they've just refused. There's a huge waste, and what won't keep gets thrown away at the end of lunchtime. When I was a schoolboy, we had no choice. You ate what you were given. There was nothing else. Well, maybe that's the answer then, Phil. Eat what you're given and nothing else. We probably wouldn't get away with that nowadays, but certainly prepared fresh food, it's commonly accepted, is the best idea. Processed foods, very convenient, often very tasty, often packed with salt and sugar, often packed with lots of fats as well. Can you keep a pet wallaby, says Tom. I don't know, Tom. Is it true your friend keeps a pet wallaby in a cage in St. John's? Is that true? You're not making that up, are you, Tom? He says the wallaby gets on well with his dogs, but he struggles to get pet insurance. Are you making that up, Tom?
Grill, bake, steam, boil, stir-fry, simmer, fry, roast, slow cook, griddle, toast. An Arga can do it all. An Arga isn't just an amazing cooker, it's a way of life. Arga specialist Haldane Fisher can recommend an Arga for every home. Call in store and discover the range and join thousands of owners who love coming home to Arga's warmth, style and practicality. Haldane Fisher for Arga, home to great cooking.
Do you run a business? Think Nicola Bowker & Co. Need an accountant? Think Nicola Bowker & Co. Do you want accounts you can trust? Think Nicola Bowker & Co. All businesses, whatever your size, call today for a free initial chat.
There's a new way to Subway with 2 fantastic menus. Which will you go for? The all-new Subway series with 15 irresistible creations like the Big Bombay Sub, Great Goddess Salad, Emperor Wrap and Big Cheesesteak Sub Melt. Or create your own. You pick the ingredients you want and build your own sub, salad or wrap the way you want it. There's a great mix of healthy and indulgent menu items available from Subway and ShopRite, Peel and Port Erin.
Calling all beach boys and girls, beach grannies and granddads, beach babies and dogs. Grab the sun cream, slip on your flip-flops and join the fun at the Port Erin Beach Festival 2023. Saturday 15th and Sunday 16th of July. Enter the free sandcastle competition and beach sports on Saturday and have a go at the bouncy castles and beach rides. There's the Manx Wildlife Mega Tanks full of marine life to explore, the legendary Scruffed Dog Show, plus traders and food stalls, mascot races and much more. Port Erin Beach Festival 2023, supported by IFGL and your nation station, Manx Radio.
Jump aboard the time train and take a trip back to the 1960s on Carnaby Street every Saturday morning at 8:30 with Isle of Man Railways. It's full of 60s hits and memories. On board the time train, Gladys the tea lady.
Right, boys.
Harry the driver.
Hello, crispy old mate.
Roger the fireman.
All aboard Isle of Man Railways time train.
Oh, and Raffles the dog. And of course you and me. You can win tickets for 2 for one of the Isle of Man Railways fantastic dining car experiences. Carnaby Street, 8:30 on Manx Radio, on AM, FM, online, on smart speakers and all over the world at manxradio.com. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Past my 22 minutes before 1. We can't bring big cruisers in. It's not deep enough, says Texter 399. Gibraltar's very deep, plus we don't have shelter. Small exclusive cruise ships, yes, we should have green tourism. There was a Sandy Toxvig programme last night as well. See what they're doing as well. Now, at the moment, we can't bring big cruise liners in. At the moment, any sort of big cruise liner has to anchor out in the bay and then get brought in via their little tugs and tenders and often bouncing up and down as they get there. I think there was a plan to build a cruise terminal, to build a pier actually out into the bay. That was the plan then, and that was the thought, but obviously that's fallen by the wayside, and we have the tourism that we have, and we have small exclusive cruise ships. And again, we don't really know how much money is spent by people who come off cruise liners, whether they spend in the economy. I know sometimes they used to take buses of them to Tynwald Mills, so they'd sit there and spend money at Tynwald Mills, and they go around some of the Manx National Heritage sites. But it was a thought, and that was a plan years and years ago. Hasn't really come to anything, so any reasonably sized cruise liner has to sit out in the bay, and they have to be tended to and fro and hope that the weather's okay. A message in from Terry, who just said, also, I've been watching that programme about Jersey and Guernsey that I think it's Alan Titchmarsh is narrating. Is it on Channel 5 or is it on ITV? But interesting. And obviously the tourist board in Jersey and Guernsey had a hand in that. It's funny. It's always a nice day when they're filming. Perhaps anyway. Why are big cruise liners coming into Douglas? Douglas is a tip. Overflowing bins due to the once fortnightly bin collections as well. To be honest, Douglas should be bulldozed into the bay, says Fred. Angry Fred. I think we got the picture, Fred. Bonzo's on now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hi there, wanting to talk about what Julian was talking about to some extent, and also Ged was talking about yesterday about political reform.
Yeah.
As one rather sort of senior person once asked me, what do you think the problem is with politics on the Isle of Man? And I replied, there isn't any. Because, of course, what we have is an elective dictatorship of a one-party state, as Peter Carron so accurately observed. We have, a one-party state, and the party is called the Comyn Party. The Comyn Party always gets its business through. Can you remember a time, or can you remember an occasion when Comyn has ever actually been defeated in something they put before Tim?
No, I mean, no doubt there are things that they put forward that will actually not make it onto the statute book. But as you say, I mean, it was also described at one point as 24 unguided missiles.
Yes, well, in those days, of course, before the reforms on departmental membership pay, various missiles were then guided by virtue of the fact of appointments. So, everyone was in the tent, everyone was on the payroll vote. So, if you wanted to stay on the payroll vote, you voted the line.
So, I mean, do you think
that
the independent, 24 independent MHKs to a greater extent is a bad thing or a good thing?
Well, first of all, it's how you elect them anyway. Because at the moment, we have the worst of all possible worlds. We have 12 constituencies that return 2 MHKs each, both of those returned by first past the post. So you end up with things like plumping, where people only vote for one. So you can end up with a very, very distorted vote, and I think some people exploit that pretty mercilessly. There's very much a tendency towards, friends and family voting, as it were, or various interest group voting, rather than actually people making sort of independent decisions on whom they're going to vote for and then vote. And also, there's a great many people who, of course, discouraged from voting. And why vote in such a system? Because your vote doesn't count. Now, once upon a time, we actually tried single transferable vote proportional representation, and it worked perfectly well. But for some reason, various people who obviously didn't like the outcome of how it should have been as how it's always been, were then very quick to say, oh no, it's too complicated an experiment, it's too complicated for the Manx public to actually put 1 or 2, instead of an X on things, which is just ridiculous. So what we actually need is, firstly, yes, I think the only way to get around the idea of MLCs not having a democratic mandate is for them not to be MLCs and for those to be extra seats in a one-chamber parliament. Secondly, that chamber has to be elected by proportional representation. And thirdly, any chief minister candidate has to declare themselves as a chief minister candidate on their manifesto, so that the other candidates know that this is someone who is going to try to be chief minister, and they can actually start to form an opinion on that, rather than it being all rather behind closed doors.
It's been mentioned in the past when you suggest that somebody should declare as a potential Chief Minister candidate, that's committing the cardinal sin on the Isle of Man of displaying ambition.
Well, there's the difference between displaying ambition and displaying leadership. Now, of course, at the moment, and I seem to recall saying this on your budget programme, the problem is we don't have people who make bad decisions. We have people who make no decisions. And that's even worse.
So where do you think we're going, Bonzo? What will be a sustainable future for democracy on the Isle of Man as far as you're concerned?
As I've outlined, it needs radical reform, and it needs, as I say, probably the one chamber, without legislative council, but with those additional seats being then made available to a one-chamber Tynwald. So you get 32 again in the in Tynwald, and then also those MHKs being returned by proportional representation on single transferable vote rather than the current system.
And what do you think about Legco? Obviously, 8 members, 3 ex officios as well. What about the size of Legco?
Well, as I've said, I think it's actually the size it needs to be for the job it does. I think the problem is here that they're not democratically elected. They don't have a popular mandate. They are voted in by a selectorate of MHKs. So that doesn't really produce as broad a base of older, wiser heads, as it were, than there really should be. So I think, to particularly address that democratic deficit, I think that Legco is going to have to be absorbed, as it were, into the House of Keys, and there to be 32 members of the House of Keys.
And the scrutiny function of Legco, where would that go?
That will go into committees.
Okay. Bonzo, thanks for calling today.
Okay then.
Always appreciate it. 13 minutes to 1.
EVF, fueling the island and fueling you. With a great range of fresh foods and everyday essentials at our filling stations. And always great offers too. Ellen Mannin Fuels.
There's more than you think at Manx Glass and Glazing. Along with the supply and installation of quality windows, doors and conservatories, Manx Glass and Glazing also have more for inside your home, including made-to-measure mirrors and glass splashbacks in a wide range of colours to give a contemporary look to any kitchen. Give your home a makeover. Visit the showroom on Snugborough Trading Estate or find out more at manxglass.com. Manx Glass and Glazing. Quality and style since 1986. Love the style, love the savings at Paradise and Gal. New ideas, new looks and incredible reductions too, because the summer sale is on now. Save up to 30% on the latest collections and our best sellers. Sofas, dining ranges, bedroom and much more. The Paradise and Gal summer sale at Michael Street Peel. On now. Find a new look you'll love at Paradise and Gal.
Come together for a night of pure Beatle nostalgia with the Bootleg Beatles. Journey through the swinging 60s with the world's most successful and longest running tribute, bringing the sounds and the atmosphere of the Beatles to life for one night only. Book now at villagaiety.com or on 600 555. The Bootleg Beatles, August 10th at the Villa Marina.
At 6 o'clock this evening, you can join me, Fiona McCardle, for Shachley.
Well done, all of you. You can achieve more than you think possible.
There is so much talent in the Isle of Man.
Collectively, you are inspiring your young people to understand the value of their history and their heritage and their culture.
This evening at 6, Shachley with me, Fiona McCardle.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
10 to 1, and John's with us. Hi, John.
Hi, Andy. Just a quick comment. There's been discussions today over the last few days over wallabies, and I happen to know somebody who obtained one that was roadkill.
Right.
And he was able to dress it, and he ate it. He had about 5 pound of meat of it. So I asked him, what was it like to eat? He said it was absolutely delicious. Oh, right, very good. He said that his further comment was, it could be the saviour of the Manx farming industry. How about that for a quote?
How did he, you don't happen to know how he cooked it, do you?
I don't. But apparently it's the main edible bit is the tail and the hindquarters.
My word.
Thinking today there, you've been talking about school meals. Well, what's wrong with culling the wallabies and putting them on the school meals menu?
John, you may have started a trend here. Thanks for calling today.
No problem.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. Funny you should say that. Thank you, John, for that comment. It's funny you should say that because after the show yesterday, somebody said you can eat kangaroo in Australia. They do serve kangaroo, and with wallabies being a marsupial like the kangaroo, maybe wallaby meat is, I'm not advocating this obviously, but wallaby meat may be something that's available. And also it was pointed out that there are culls of deer on Dartmoor and other places where the deer population gets out of hand, and deer is culled, and that's where some of the venison comes from. My word, the edible wallabies of the Isle of Man. Probably me, says Dick, but Daphne Kane says that 30% of school meals are nutritionally poor. Well, by definition, that means 70% are nutritionally okay. Can every parent, child or politician say their breakfast or evening meal is as good as that, i.e. 70% nutritionally okay, 30% not? Plus, the vast majority of government catering, including schools and colleges, says Dick, is prepared in the hospital's catering department. They don't just cover the hospital. So if anybody knows about meals on the Isle of Man, it's the hospital, says Dick. Well, Richie says, I don't think the Isle of Man has good fertile soil. Look at our history. We've never been above average. We could graze animals, yes. We can grow oats and root crops, potatoes, yes, but wheat, no. Well, we have been growing milling wheat, Richie. Leave that to those who don't have to drench their land in artificial fertilizers, says Richie. But the fact is we haven't grown milling wheat this year because of the fact that there is no Ramsey Bakery to get the wheat, get the flour from Laxey Mills. So we haven't now. Whether that will drop away, I mean, that's the consequence of having no Ramsey Bakery, not just having no Brown Molenberg. Only senior schools have fresh cooked food. All junior schools have frozen processed stuck in a hot cabinet, so it's ready for lunch. All junior schools have the same food. It will be cost cutting, so they think they can save money. And Vivian's on. Hi, Vivian.
Hello, Andy. School meals.
Yeah.
School meals came in when I was at school, and you got the offer of one meal or do without. And you cleaned your plate because you knew there was nothing else going for you.
What was the quality like, Vivian?
Very good. We got the cottage pie, we got hot pots, we got cheese pie, which people loved. I don't eat cheese, but they thought it was wonderful, with potatoes and vegetables, and it was all fresh food that you got. There was no mucking around with it. And the greatest problem is, I think, my personal opinion, that half the problem is an awful lot of parents and these people that cook the meals don't know how to cook properly.
Did you get pudding when you were at school?
Oh, yes. Steamed pudding and custard and all sorts of things.
So do you think it's the fact that not as many people know how to cook or have the time to cook or can't be bothered?
I think it's too easy to open a freezer and take a meal out.
All right, Vivian, thanks for calling today.
That's all right.
Appreciate that. Tommy's on now with us on Mannin Line. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Andy. I just saying to the chap, I think there should be proportional representation, Andy, because it's totally unfair that somebody in the Douglas seat, could lose out with 3,000, 4,056 and lose out to somebody with just 50 votes more. Yet somebody in Michael can get in with maybe 470. That seems totally unfair to me.
Tommy, what do you think about the Australian system whereby if you don't vote, you get fined? Voting's compulsory in Australia.
Good, exactly. That's a brilliant idea, Andy. And no excuses because it's raining and such a program's on, and you don't want to miss it. Get the right to vote, Andy.
Okay, Tommy, thanks for calling. The ultra-processed food. Well, coincidentally, As if it were planned, Mannin Line is going to be live at Ballacameen High School tomorrow. We're talking to the students of Ballacameen. Last school broadcast of the school year, so I'll ask them what the food's like at Ballacameen High School. All that talking about cheese pie. I used to love cheese and onion flan when I was at school. That's it. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Stick around, Christy is on the way. And we're live at Ballacameen High School tomorrow. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
WINT